chief guest for today's event, the Agile Regional Marathon 21, has joined us. I guess if I start introducing him, I would require 2 to 3 sessions to complete his intro with a very large, so many things to discuss about Mr. Ted Smendinger. He is 12 hours behind us, so it's really early morning at his end in Denver. How are you, Ted?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing great. So, Ted is a globally experienced leadership coach with expertise in behavior-based talent development. So, when we interacted with Ted 2 good years ago, I found a man, a heavy, a bulky kind of a man standing in a hall and instructing everyone, gentlemen, you need to put your mobile in the basket. While you're in my training, no usage of technology. I was I was a bit stunned, and I saw that even my CEO or the senior leadership was following those instructions. And we had 3 days with Ted. They were marvelous. It was a kind of a lifetime experience. We had a training with him while he was in Pakistan before this pandemic hit to the world. And we truly, missed those days. The perspective, the way of delivering the talk, a very interesting book that he has already written, Managing the Worry Circle. It was fantastic. So I requested Ted to join us as the chief guest for this ARM 21, the second volume. And again, we got a very good response. He was kind enough to accept our invitation, spite of the fact that it's pretty early for him to wake up and deliver some pearls of wisdom of his. So without going into further details and introducing Ted, I would request you to please introduce yourself, because if I continue with your introduction, I might go on and on and on. So the virtual floor, Mr. Ted Smendinger, over to you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Sam. I don't really have much to say about myself with regards to everywhere I've been and what I've done and all. What I do for a living and as a passion is I just try to help people get lined up between their head and their heart, right? Your head and your heart. When your head and your heart are lined up, life's pretty easy. But when your head and your heart get all out of sync, it's very, very difficult. And so what we're going to cover this morning, and we don't have a lot of time, and I've got a lot for you, but these are some of the key things I think you need to keep your head clear so that you can navigate life the way you want to. As brilliant as you folks are on the tech side of life, you don't do yourself or your organizations, your families, or friends any good if our head is really in a confused state. So what we're going to talk about this morning are some of the key things, or evening for you guys, some of the key things that I think you want to keep in mind so that you can wake up each day in a good, positive place, and the emotional amplitude of life gets smoothed out a bit, right? There's a lot of stress in the world and right now, and we're going to explain that and how to manage it and all that stuff. So this session's all about you. It's life skills centric, right? And the reason that I have a passion for this is that I believe that when we are in a good place emotionally, then that's who you bring to the office every day. It's not like there's not a business you and a personal you. There's only one you, and that's the best you. And so we're going to cover that today. So, you guys have seen the definition of Agile, right? And so what I tried to do is craft for you a really relevant, nice, tight session on life skills to keep in mind as we move forward. So let's take a look at those topics real quickly, if we can, if you can move on, Ms. San, for me.
Okay, so you want us to move to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And this is what we're going to cover. I'll let you read these, and then in a few seconds, I'll comment on them, or if you have any questions about them.
Okay, so Ted, what we're going to do is probably we can take the questions at the end of the session, or if something pops up, I'll definitely bug you to respond to the query. But I guess let's resume. Let's start.
Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to cover this in a sequence. It's really important so you better understand how your mind works, right? And the first part of that will deal with what are called maps, lenses, and core beliefs. It's how you look at the world, right? Second thing we'll talk about is our significant emotional events, and these can be good or bad, but we'll talk about how those reshape us as adults. The worry circle is something I have written about. I developed this concept a long time ago, but that'll explain what you worry about, how these different types of things impact your thought processes, your happiness, your stress, all that, what kind of things you should worry about, what kind you shouldn't, and how the brain processes worry. So there's a lot of valuable insight to be grabbed hold of there. Three-headed juggling is a concept I'll talk about. All of us on this call, I think there's 47 right now, and we all have three heads. So we're dealing with about 100 and what is that, 151 heads right now. And I think you'll relate to that when I explain how that overlays the first three items. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about pressure and anxiety, coping and resilience. And lastly, before we button it up, I'm going to talk about briefly how tech impacts behavior and happiness. I always link those two things together, behavior and happiness. Very important. Life's a lot of fun when you're in a good place. It's the world's very heavy to carry around when you're not. And then the final slide I'll have for you real quickly is just some reminders to keep you in a great place moving forward. Okay. Ms. Tom, can we go to the next?
Okay, next slide.
All right. Read the four in the white lettering on the left side of this are important. So just take a quick glance at those.
You want me to read them out, or it's up to the
No,
audience?
I'd let the readers read them. It's easier that way.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to them.
Go ahead.
Right. So basically, our formative years, and it says on here 0 to 13. That's sort of bogus because nobody remembers anything until they're about 3.5 or 4 years old, right? So what happens during that time period is that all of our surroundings and our influences, and there are many, right? That shapes how we are going to grow into puberty and beyond. That shapes how we look at the world, okay? And I think what's really important to avoid conflicts and misunderstanding in the workplace and out in real life is that we respect these, right? Because these happen to us at a formative stage. It's not like, we're 7 or 8 years old and we decide what our map of the world's going to be. No. It's our parents, it's our teachers, it's our friends, it's our enemies, it's our religious background, it's our socioeconomic status, it's our neighborhood, it's traffic, it's the effectiveness of your teachers, blah, 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 blah. There's a million things that go on there. Nowadays, throw in all the digital addiction that kids have, right? You got more portals into the mind than ever before. So the growing mind has to process all this stuff, boil it out, and come up with some kind of view of how the world exists. Now, the key is number 4. And what I said, look, everybody has these. Everybody does. I got them, you got them. Everybody has his or her own map of the world. Your power is going to come from accepting that they're very hard to change because that's how somebody was raised. So don't judge it. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There just is. So your power comes from understanding it, not judging it. Stress comes from when we judge others who are different than us or has a different opinion on something than us. It creates emotional stress and can create a lot of conflict. Totally unnecessary. Your power, especially as leaders, if you aspire to lead or you do lead now, your power comes from understanding, not judging. and recognizing that if something is part of someone's core beliefs, really, really tough to change, right? And that's okay. You almost want to protect it. You want to protect their right to be different than us, right? Because we're all the sum total of our life's experiences up to that point. Now, over on the yellow side here, I got 3 points there. Those are called significant emotional events. And significant emotional events is what changes us after those formative years. So it's 0 to 13, we're figuring out how we're going to look at the world. But once we hit puberty or so, and we start moving to adulthood, what changes us are significant emotional events that are both good and bad. Sometimes you can see them coming. Sometimes they hit you on the head. You never see it coming. Good, bad, right? You might get married and have a child, and you have a great marriage, and you're happy as a parent. That's it's a great significant emotional event. You might get married and be in a bad relationship, and everybody's miserable, and there's nothing worse. Being alone is bad enough, but being alone in a relationship is even worse, right? That significant emotional event can change you again. And so the point with significant emotional events are these are the things that emotionally really shake us up and make us reassess. And my guess is that many on this call are doing what they do for a living because of a significant emotional event that steered them toward it. And that's great, because significant emotional events make us reassess what's going on and decide, okay, am I at a fork in the road and I need to go that way, or I need to go that way, or I need to change this? This is part of life. It's part of mortality. And I'm fond of saying that mortality is really inconvenient. It gets in the way of a lot of weekends, right? But only we can really determine, based on these significant emotional events, how we're going to change as an individual. And if we go toward the dark side, life's going to get more difficult. If we go toward the light, life will get better. But everybody has these, right? So the 2 takeaways on this one will deal with the fact that core beliefs are formed from 0 to 13. After that, what changes us is how we react to a significant emotional events. At the bottom, I've got a little box, optimism and pessimism. How are you going to attack life? I am an optimist, and I live in a world of how can we. Pessimists live in a world of can't because. Oftentimes, your outlook on life is determined by how you were raised. If during those formative years, 0 to 13, you had a domineering environment or a suppressive environment that kept telling you, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's for other people, blah, 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 blah. You might get shaped into a pessimistic point of view. On the other hand, if you were raised differently, you were raised in a world of how can we, that might be how you attack the world, right? What I love about your choice on how you're going to navigate life as adults, you can pick which one of these you want to be. You can go from optimism to pessimism or vice versa just because you want to. Now, optimism matters because when you get stymied, when you get a block and something in the way, instead of looking at it like, oh man, I can't do this, an optimist looks at something like that as a temporary delay, temporary derailment, something that we will get around and continue to proceed, right? And so the will to continue is diminished, is not diminished as it is pessimism. If something goes wrong with a pessimist, they look at it as validation. It's like, told you so, and the will to continue gives up. Optimists also live longer, about 3 or 4 years longer, which is good. It's a reward for doing the right thing. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next, Misan.
Before we move forward, Dad, I had a little query. So if someone is emotionally deprived or stressed, how someone by itself can uplift with the kind of emotions that a person is going through? Of course, if if you are not emotionally well? What
Um,
what what would be the factor that could help a person uplift itself
yeah,
to
okay.
become
So
the master master?
somebody gets like this, and it's how do we get
Yeah,
back to here, right?
yeah, of course. By
Uh,
by on by his own or her own, is it possible, or you need some
oh,
company, or
absolutely
you need
possible. And it's
how? What would be
really,
the factor?
and we will get to that directly. I'm sort of building a platform here, right, or a
Okay,
staircase, just like, right? Because in order to be able to get back, you know, if you're feeling stressed or uncomfortable, you got to be able to manage the noise that's in here. So one of the next the next thing we're going to talk about is that crowded head, right? And how do you, okay, once I recognize that and I feel that, how do I change it? Like, what's the first thing you got to know is, why do I feel this way, right? And then the second thing, once you understand why you feel that way, what can I do to get back to a better place myself? Boom. Okay. So let's go to the next slide and we'll jump right into that area because it's a
right, right.
fascinating
Let's move.
area and I
Yeah,
appreciate the question.
yeah. Let's move.
Okay. Now, I will preface this. The worry circle I developed years and years and years ago. Long story short, friend of mine worried about nothing. His wife worried about everything. All they did was fight. It was really dramatic. He was at one end of the spectrum, she was at the other, and they had nothing they could ever agree on. And all they did was argue, and I knew they would get a divorce, and they did, right? And they're both good people. They were just oil and water. They just didn't mix, right? But it triggered all the research that I've done in this field. And so the circles, the imaginary bubble in the mind that houses everything that we worry about. And a couple of key points. Everybody has a worry circle. It's human nature, and it goes all the way back to the caveman, right? Caveman walks out of the cave, and there's a giant kitty cat there. He's got to decide whether it's friendly and he wants to go pet it, or whether it's a saber-toothed tiger that's going to eat his face, right? So it's a survival instinct. So worry is a natural thing. Everybody does it. But why do some people handle it better than others? That's what we'll talk about, right? Everybody has a circle. And so number 2 here, it says a circle must stay full at all times. And so what I mean by that is we all have a worry circle in the mind, and it's all crowded with stuff. Like Massam's all worried I'm not going to be here at 6 a.m. my time, and I'm worried about him. What did you do with my presentation? And we're going, but these things get resolved, right? And so they leave the worry circle, and then something else comes in and takes its place. The circle stays full at all times. It's never empty. It just doesn't happen that way. I am fond here in the States. I'm fond of saying the only people with an empty worry circle are the ones that think that pro wrestling is real. You know, they throw these people around and stuff. Now, number 3 is really, really important because it gets to the heart of the question that we just had, which was a good one, right? Your head is going to be full of worries. Those worries will be constituted of 3 different types. Some of them are controllable, some are uncontrollable, and some are what I call influence issues. And like I have here, controllable worries are good. And the reason that they're good is things we can control in life are like our thoughts and our deeds, right? Our actions and our, you know, what we're looking for in life, right? If that's all the only kind of worries we got in our head, then that's terrific, because when something bugs us enough, we can step up and deal with it. So if we go back to the earlier question, my head is really crowded. How do I self-manage back? First question you ask yourself is, can I control this? Yes or no? And if it's yes, I can control it, a controllable worry circle, you know, it's good for you, because when it bugs you enough, you'll deal with it, right? And this is why we see some spectacular transformations sometimes. People get tired of being unfit, and they get on a diet and exercise program, and they become very fit and encourage others to become the same way. They just reach a point, or they stop smoking, right? One day. And so some worries are good. Now, the second bullet, uncontrollable worries, things that are beyond our ability to remedy, right? These are toxic. These can kill you. And I'm not being overly dramatic with that. The news is full every day of bleed and lead stories where somebody has just crumbled or snapped and done something heinous to someone else because the pressures of their worries have taken them down. Uncontrollable worries, things beyond our ability to resolve, are processed by the brain differently than the controllables. Controllables are good. They give us a source of confidence and motivation. Uncontrollable worries, the brain lives in a hypothetical place, which is, if I can't fix this, this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen. They become these dominoes of bad things. It's a negative emotional vortex of hypothetical what if. We project what might happen. Well, shoot, 99% of stuff that we imagine doesn't ever happen, right? But the point is, that is a brain process that is very bad for us. So if I go back to the original question we had, which is, look, I got something going on in my life. I got a problem. Can I deal with it? Yes or no? Can you control it? Yeah, good. When it bugs you, just quit thinking about it, fix it, get it out of the circle. If it's uncontrollable, I want you to block it out of the mind. It's just not allowed in there. You live a life that says the only things allowed in my circle are things I can influence, right? Or, excuse me, things I can control. Or in the case of an influence issue, which is our third kind, influence issue is part of controllable and part uncontrollable. So if it's an issue I can influence, and these are often work related, what part of that can I own? And you think through that, you segment. I can own this part, then I own it. It's in my circle. The part that I can't control, out of my circle, because I know that's bad for me. So there's a certain amount of mental discipline that comes from self-awareness to what kind of worry you got going on right here, right? Now, point number 4 is that, and this is important to remember too. I said there's three types of things, you know, controllable, uncontrollable, and influence, right? But there's 8 basic categories, and these emanate from us. They come out from us. And I've given you an example here. They go, you know, we worry about ourselves, our family, our friends, our work, money, local issues, global issues. So they go out from us, right? That's normal. Normal. Everything you guys worry about is normal, right? But the art becomes, how are you going to handle it to stay your best, most positive self? That is through the discipline of identifying, is an issue controllable? I own it. Uncontrollable? It's out of my circle. It's not allowed in the circle, right? And the last point that I have, 2 points. What you worry about is a choice. You can choose what you're going to worry about and not worry about. And worry, you know, I say worry about the right things, the controllables. One thing that's interesting about worry too, another point, is that the busier you are, the less you tend to worry because you're always doing something. Idle time causes a lot of worry because you have the time to sit around and think things through. And then the last point I have is sort of a mantra that I live by. It's, I want you to manage the circle, never let the circle manage you, right? The world is a fun place when you're navigating it right. It is very heavy when you're navigating it wrong, trying to carry it around, okay? All right, let's go to the next, Ms. Sam.
Okay.
Okay, so now we understand the importance of our core beliefs. They shape our map of the world. We understand that everybody has a worry circle. And I did neglect the point that during our formative years, 0 to 13, if you're raised by a worrier, guess what you're probably going to be? A worrier.
Of course, a worry.
Right? Yeah, because you're shaped that way, right? But the thing I love about worry circle management is you can own how you're going to, you know, you can own the space between here and there. This real estate is yours, right? And just because you're raised by a worrier doesn't mean you need to be one. I'd rather have you really manage your worry circle great and then be an evangelist to help others, because there's a lot of crowded heads out there. But let's talk about another thing that causes stress and worry sometimes. And this might even be tied back to the question we had earlier. And I have a concept that I'm very fond of that I call three-headed juggling. And three-headed juggling is the point that I made earlier with regards to every person we look at actually has three heads on his or her shoulders, right? And the first head that we juggle through life is the image we want to project. How do we want to appear to others? The second head deals with the receptivity we get. How do we, what kind of feedback do we get? Affirmations, challenges, support, confrontation, so I want to project this image, but I'm getting this one. And then the third head is, look, regardless of the image you want to project, and regardless of what others say to you, who are you really? Right? There's the public you, there's the private you, and there's the secret you. Right? Now, everybody juggles these three things. And some people drop one. For some people, they're the same weight, so they're easier to juggle. Some people have a whole lot of weight in one of them, and that makes it a little more awkward to juggle successfully. But what happens sometimes, especially with young people who are now the sons and daughters of people with digital addiction issues, when you live in a totally digital world, you become a bit more binary in your thinking and a bit less poetic. And what I mean by that is that through social media, especially, you project the image you want. You guys have all heard this. You're in the tech business. Project the image you want, and then we get feedback from others that either validates or challenges or whatever. Right? Now, we can control worry circle. We can control the image we project, but none of us can control what we get back from others, right? Because you guys can't control what I think of you. I can't control what you think of me. I can try to do the best I can to do a good job for you. But I can't be overly burdened by someone's thoughts or views that are invisible to me and maybe unexpressed, right? And then the third head, though, is really the most important when you navigate life, is who are you really? And I say that because until you're happy with who you are, you'll never be happy with what you have. I repeat that. Until you're happy with who you are, you'll never be happy with what you have. Okay. So social media is a problem because it only deals with the first two heads. And Zuckerberg knew this when he foisted the thing, Facebook on the world. He knew this, right? And so it's all about capturing your eyeballs, giving you a chance to have a bully pulpit, and then getting validation from others, blah, 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 blah. The herd mentality totally ignores the most important head, which is third head, which is deep down, who are you really? So a lot of times we get conflict in life and conflict between others because we don't understand we're juggling three heads. We don't understand that others are juggling three heads. And sometimes what is important to someone else is not that important to us, and vice versa. So this can create friction. So again, emotional intelligence, self-awareness on this issue is important. Recognize what's causing the stress. Right? Now, strengthen your third head, right? That is a lonely journey to go to because it encompasses all of who you are, the good, the bad, all that kind of stuff. It's a deep dive into owning the uniqueness of you. And I think that's what we should celebrate, not fear. Okay. On to the next.
Okay.
I bring this forward, coping and resilience, for a very important reason. It is a huge problem on college campuses right now. And a lot of people in the tech business are relatively young. and it's a problem there too. Coping and resilience issues are what's causing suicides to go up and everything like that. And each one to me is such a human tragedy. I'll let you look at those points. The biggest thing to me to share is that this is really a skill. You know, when I talk about life skill, there's a skill you want to develop to deal with setbacks and bouncing back, which is what resilience lets you do. And to basically net it all out for you, it's problem solving and the ownership of the choices you make. And when I put up point number one, it's a big challenge for those raised in domineering households. We have in the States, and I don't know if the term is used where you guys are, things called smother mothers or lawnmower parents. And smother mothers are ones that just hover over the child. And of course, they love their child more than anything in the world. They want to do the best for them. But by blanketing all their choices and making their decisions for them, the child never learns accountability of making a good choice or a bad choice. And so as a parent, what you want to do is teach your child to evaluate options, talk about options, make a choice, and then talk about the results. And if it doesn't go right, we analyze what else could we have done if we're in that situation again. What might you do? Now, that's easy for me to say because it's easier to raise somebody else's kids than it is your own. I understand. But what we want to teach people during that formative stage is decision making and accountability. Because as your careers evolve and the stakes rise on what you're involved with, the importance of this in stressful times, bounce back times, turning something from a setback into a learning opportunity, this all comes up from the inside out, right? And so again, this is all about decision making and owning the decisions that you choose to make. Okay. Number 4, I'll talk about real quick because we do have a couple minutes. Well, I'm a big believer in all these things. Number 3, I advocate this. If you seek advice, take it. You know, just don't look for somebody to echo what you think. If you get something different, if you seek advice from somebody whose opinion you value, take it. Makes life a lot easier because they might have traveled the road that you're looking to try to decide whether to go this way or that way. Now, number 4 is important because it deals with changes over time. And you guys are change agents. What you do is you change things. You change processes, you change directions, you change strategy, you change methodologies, right? And you're going to have your rapid adopters and you're going to have your laggards and you're going to have your followers and all this stuff. But I think it's important. So the dynamics of change are organic to you guys. It's just how you look at the world, right? It's no big deal, right? But people have different velocities when it comes to dealing with change, and a change, whether it's in life or business or whatever, forces the mind to go through 4 distinct stages. And the first step of all this stuff is what I call the evolutionary need. And that builds up over time. But then when a change happens, we get to the second stage, and I call that the panic stage. And the panic stage is a very emotional place. People start panicking. It's an emotional reaction. What does this mean to me? The status quo was disrupted. You know, the way I had always understood, you know, my relationship with this person was this way. Now it's all blown up. What's it mean to me? Blah, 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 right? An emotional place doesn't do you any good to take action upon. And this is when coping and resilience are really challenged because you can't make a good decision when you're in an emotional place. You got to get to a logical place. And that's step 3. And step 3 is accepting change as a logical place to be for the mind, right? Now, from a worry circle perspective, if a change has come down and there's nothing you can do about it, it's an uncontrollable worry circle issue. You don't have any choice. You got to accept it. So the sooner you accept it, you get to a logical place. And logic is what we need to get to stage 4, which is flourishing under the new reality. And I'll bet if you guys look at past initiatives you've been involved with, you can see distinctly in retrospect all 4 of those stages coming into play. The evolutionary need for something to happen, you're involved with the change, people don't understand it, they fear the worst, they finally accept it, and then everybody's better off for it. This is a psychological wheel of change, has tremendous value in your real life and your business life and your lives as coaches, helping others understand difficult or stressful times. So that's key to understanding how to deal with coping and resilience also. And of course, number 5, manage your circle, manage the worry circle, only stuff you can control, let the rest block it, keep the rest out of the castle, as I say. And then your 3rd head, who you really are. When you're real proud of who you are, it removes a lot of stress. Right? And so that one to me is more important than the first 2. The image you want to project and how you're received by others. Your power, especially over the long haul, will be from being really happy with who you are inside, the man or woman that you choose to be and act to be. All right. Next one, I think I just have a few thoughts on the impact of tech on behavior and happiness.
Okay.
Right? Digital addiction, big problem, getting worse. I stood on the soapbox and was blowing the trumpet on this probably, when the iPhone 4 came out, so the fossil ages, right? And there are reasons for it. You guys are probably well versed on them. It's the dopamine release, the interactions with text, and the more important the person is you hear from, the bigger the jolt of dopamine, all this kind of stuff, right? And I think what's really accelerating the problem, from my standpoint as a behaviorist, is that the expanding speeds of how we're communicating now and the options we have. It's exciting on one hand, but it's also a tease to please and feeds the addiction issues because it's seductive. It's easy. A lot of times it's free. It's fast. I don't have to deal with somebody else. It's all me, blah, blah, blah. But so that's going to continue. We're already seeing it with 5G. Wait till 6G rolls out, right? Okay, so if we are distracted and we are totally immersed, I mean, our whole life is relying on digital tethering, I think it gets a little bit harder to protect the castle, and the castle is what I call your brain, right? Your brain, because there's more portals into the mind than ever before. You can see them on your phone, the computers, voice messaging, with the text, instant messaging. I mean, even when you try to watch something on television, there's going to be a crawler at the bottom, and then you have a talking head here, and you have a graph over here. It can get real crowded, and so what I don't want you to lose is worry circle management of having the castle of your mind get too crowded, because I always say that inside of that castle, it's going to look one of 2 ways. It's going to look nice and neat and orderly, or it's going to be chaotic and like an open bar, an open party, where there's free food and drinks and everybody can show up and trash the place and they don't pay anything for being there, and then they leave when they want. That's what happens with an ungroomed mind, an undisciplined mind. So I want you to protect the castle and only let the correct things in here. And that takes a lot of some unplugged time each day to really step back and examine what is going on in here. And you don't need your eyes for that. You need your brain for that, right? And so that leads to number 4, which is carving some kind of unplugged time into your day and exercising your big muscles. And the reason I want you to exercise your big muscles because that'll get your blood pumping through the brain. It'll help you think. It'll help you feel better and stay more fit. And it gets us off our butt at a time when the world is sort of telling us to sit on it more often. I'm big on wisdom. Number 5. I don't think you find wisdom in a box. I think you accumulate it here. And I think a great challenge for each of you would be to become the wisest man or woman you can possibly be by storing things inside of here. If all the knowledge is in the box, when you're separated from the box, you're separated from your knowledge, right? If everything's up here, it goes with you wherever you go, and there's power there, right? And wisdom is, wisdom is horribly underestimated because people are in such a hurry to go look up stuff, they forget to accumulate it. And I think over the long haul, you want to accumulate it. Social media, I don't like it. Gaming is horrible for kids, especially games of violence or smashes and crashes. Terrible. And the reason I say that, every conceivable study that's done with child behavior and grades in school, academic performance, will tell you that the more gaming they do, the worse they do, and the more behavioral problems they create. Don't like it. That's my opinion. Good luck managing it in a world where people are sheep, right? They follow, 5 sheep determine the direction of the flock. The rest of the flock just falls in behind them unquestioned. And that's the problem we have with kids. Kids have lived by a herd mentality. And so if somebody's doing something, they figure that's a license for them to do it too. And one of the tough things to do as a parent is to be a parent, not the kid's best friend. Right? There's time to let them do stuff. And there's time to say no. And in my opinion, this is something you got to manage tightly, especially during those formative years. You're going to end up with somebody with an immature look at the world when it comes time to go out and enter it, the workforce or whatever else like that. I said number 7, I won't repeat it, about happiness. Number 8, I think, is important. I went through a stage where I was always miserable if I wasn't perfect. And what I learned is that perfect's too hard, and you don't have to be perfect. You just got to be better. You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to apologize. You're allowed to help others. But life's a lot better when you lift somebody up and you don't put them down, right? But I think in business, knowledge, skills, and attributes determine somebody's life and career trajectory. Every job has a certain amount of knowledge. You got to have it. There's a certain skill set. You might need it. And the third piece of that, the intangibles, the attributes of an individual are unique. And I think you want to celebrate your uniqueness and be proud of that and chase what you're capable of becoming in life. In my line of work, I've had the great, wonderful, good fortune of working with thousands of people all around the world. And I still stay in touch with many of them, and they mean the world to me. And what I love is watching somebody chase what he or she is capable of becoming in life. And they transcend. I might meet them as an individual contributor, and they transcend up to leadership, and in some cases, great wealth. And then on the other hand, what really is disappointing to me is somebody who I see has the ability, has the talent to be somebody someday, and he or she just doesn't want to do it. And that is so sad. It's such a waste, because I know other people that wish they had that skill set, and they would pursue what it would take to have a rich, full life where you chase their goals and achieve them. But how much energy you put into living, it's up to you. Number 9, mentioned this, the third head is where your power comes from, right? It's not the image you want to project. It's not how others see you. It's who are you? That's who you need. That's your shotgun buddy over the long haul. That's the one that's beside you in the car all the time, right? And number 10, if you're meeting a lot of jerks, this was taught to me years ago by a sales manager who couldn't manage his worries for him. He told me one day, if you're meeting a lot of jerks, chances are you're the jerk. So be nice. Nice is free. Okay, little friendly advice. Last slide. We could go to the next one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Manage the circle. Juggle your 3 heads. talked about mortality, gratitude, living a driven life. If you have trouble sleeping at night, unplug before you go to bed, of course. But as you put your head on the pillow, think gratitude thoughts. Think about gratitude thoughts. It's amazing what happens. You'll drop off to sleep quicker and you'll wake up in a better frame of mind. It's amazing how it works. And that's the signal that you give your brain when you recline in bed and put your head on that pillow, gratitude thoughts, okay? Be leery of digital addiction. It breaks my heart to see people whose tools are managing them. They're not managing their tools. Tools are extraordinary when you use them for strategic reasons. But there's a lure to them that can be dangerous on the downside through addiction. I put number 5 in there, and I say this statistically. This is a pure math example, nothing else in it. Don't take yourself too seriously. There's almost 3 billion Africans and Chinese really don't care. And sometimes, it's important to us. Step back, get a perspective, right? Just get a perspective, right? If you're doing the best you can, that's good enough. And if you're not, then just quit moaning and groaning and tie your shoes a little tighter and get after it. Number 6, be good and do good. A lot of hurt people walking around out there. Lift them up, don't put them down. Be a positive force in the universe. And number 7, of course, be an optimist. It's a much better way to live life. Okay, so that's what I got for you guys today. If you have any questions, fire away. If there's something you want to talk about privately, Misam can, or I think I even have Misam can send out my contact information. I'm happy to talk to you privately too.
Absolutely, man. I'll definitely share, and enjoyed your talk. I mean, 45 minutes have already been passed. Couldn't figure it out how quickly you just spent 45 minutes. Anyway, so you just mentioned that in your experience, you found a few people who could have done a lot better, but yet they didn't.
Yeah.
What could be the reason about that? I mean, why someone go into that kind of a mode where they can never go back into the optimism or optimistic kind of a mode, and they still keep in that very circle, or in kind of a mode where they do not trust their abilities? Are they lacking some companionship? Are they lacking some positive thought, or they are just putting themselves into a very hard kind of a position where it's almost impossible for them to come back? What could be the reason?
Well, I think that's a great question, and there are a couple key ones. One of them is they may not, again, always work backwards to the formative years. If your formative years when you're young were in a constricted environment where there were limitations based on the expectations that others had of you, especially by extremely judgmental environments. This guy's a jerk. That guy's stupid. Blit, blit, blit. I mean, we've all seen it, right? That's almost like hitting us with a little tack hammer and denting our exterior, right? So that can have a big thing to it. A huge factor, I think, probably above all, is they don't want to learn. Lifelong learning can take you everywhere. It can take you everywhere. But so many people stop learning when they get out of school. Like they think, okay, I'll go to school, I'll go to university, and then I'll get out and I'll get a job and I'll learn about the job. But they aren't developing horizontally and deeper with things like life skills, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, influencing others, and realizing, you know what, everybody has a choice. Everybody's got a choice, right? You can either be a role player or an impact player. What do you want to be? What do you want to be, right? And if you want to be an impact player, then You learn. It's knowledge, skills, and attributes. You work, you work, you work, you learn. And if you have a curiosity for learning, you can outstrip any kind of shackles that somebody puts on you. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I guess we had a wonderful audience today, and thanks to you again, sacrificing your Sunday, waking up early, giving us the talk, sharing your wisdom. And same goes for the audience who have been with us for more than 5 hours now. I mean, fantastic audience they have been. Audience, if you guys have any questions, please raise your hand before we sign off and the event. I have a few important announcements to make. I haven't seen a query that, and whatever I got a few feedback from the people, and then I just thrown it on the floor so that you can answer, and you have already satisfied them. So I'll share your contact details, your LinkedIn profile, so that people can connect with you and have a better conversation with you. Again,
yeah, thanks. I'm very sincere in that. Sometimes people have stuff on their mind they don't want to talk about in public. Then they just want an opinion, and I always help you. I always help you. So don't be shy about reaching out. I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
All right, audience.
Mizan, I have a question.
Can you hear me? Please go ahead.
Yes. मुझे ये पता करना था कि मैंने स्टार्टिंग पार्ट के ना कुछ बेसिकली सेशन मिस कर दिया था, तो इसकी रिकॉर्डिंग वगैरह हमें मिल सकती है? एक तो ये है क्वेरी, और दूसरी बात
अब्दुल माजिद, बिल्कुल। अच्छा, दूसरा सवाल प्लीज।
जी, दूसरा सवाल ये कि जितनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन है, अगर इनके कॉन्टैक्ट डिटेल्स हैं, वो वाया ईमेल हमें आप भेज देंगे?
जी, मैं बताता हूँ, उस पे भी आता हूँ। So Ted, we had the queries are not related to your talk, but okay, they were missing the conversation, initial conversation or talks that we had. So they just wanted to know how we're going to get that. Again, thank you so much, Ted, for your time and for your talk.
Great. Thanks a million. All the best, guys.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.